All right, let's talk about something that I think affects every single one of us who loves to learn. It's how to stop just, looking at the words in a book and start really absorbing what they mean. Today, we're going to transform how you read for good. Wow. Okay, let's just start with this because it hits hard, right? It's so true. We've all had that feeling. You finish a book, you feel super inspired, and then a week later, the big ideas are just gone. But what if they didn't have to be? And here is the crazy part. This is why it feels that way. Studies show that people forget up to 90% of what they've read in just 1 week. 90! That's just wild! It means almost all that wisdom we spend hours and hours consuming just evaporates. So you gotta ask, right? If all that incredible knowledge is just leaking out of your brain, what's the point? What's the real return on that time investment? Well, that's the exact problem we're here to solve today. So first up, let's put a name to this thing we all experience, the reader's forgetting problem. It's a universal frustration, for sure, but the good news is it's totally solvable. I want you to think about this for a second. Seriously, of the last, say, 5 books you finished, could you right now, off the top of your head, confidently explain their main arguments or the most important things you were supposed to do? If you hesitated at all, you're not alone. That right there is the forgetting problem in action. Okay, so how do we fight back? Our first trick is all about a complete and total mindset shift. We are going to stop being passive passengers on a reading journey and start becoming active hunters. This right here might be the single most powerful change you can make. Before you even open to page 1, you have to set what we'll call a reading intention. Ask yourself a specific burning question that you want this book to answer for you. And I love this analogy because it just nails the difference. A passive reader is like a scattered shotgun blast. You spray pellets everywhere and just hope you hit something interesting. But an active reader, someone who's armed with a question, you become a guided missile, locking right onto the exact information you need. Now, what's so cool is that this isn't just a nice idea. It's backed by brain science. You have this thing in your brain called the reticular activating system, or RSA for short. Think of it like your brain's personal bouncer or a relevance filter. When you give it a specific job, like find the answer to this question, it programs itself to scan all the information coming in and flag everything that's relevant to your mission. You literally start to see things on the page that were invisible to you before. So let's make this super practical. How do you actually do it? 3 easy steps. 1. Before you even start your next book, just stop for a second. 2. Figure out your one key question. What do you really need to get out of this book? And 3. Grab a sticky note, write that question down, and slap it right on the cover. That simple little act turns reading from a chore into a treasure hunt. Okay, so now you're a treasure hunter, but when you find that treasure, you need a way to capture it, right? That brings us to trick number 2, and it's all about fixing one of the most common mistakes we all make when we read. Let's be honest with ourselves. When you go back to a book you highlighted a year ago, what does it look like? It's usually just a wall of random yellow graffiti, right? It's overwhelming, and it's not actually that helpful. The key isn't to stop highlighting, it's to start highlighting with a system. And here it is, the triple layer highlighting system. It's a game changer. You're just going to use 3 different colors, and each one has a very specific job. Yellow is for the book's skeleton, the key ideas and the main arguments. Blue or green is for the stories and examples. These are the memory anchors that make those ideas actually stick. And finally, pink or orange is for your to-do list, the practical action steps and quotes you can use right away. So just imagine going back to review that book later. It's not a mess anymore. It's a perfectly organized index that you built for yourself. Need to remember the main points? Just scan the yellow. Need a story to explain a concept? Look for the blue. Need to know what you were supposed to do? Find the pink. It is so simple, but it is so, so powerful. Okay, so let's bring all this home. These 2 tricks, hunting for answers and the highlight system, they combine to form your new reading playbook. I mean, look at this shift. Before, reading could feel like a passive chore, something you did with very little to show for it in the end. But now, it's an active hunt for treasure that you can actually find, keep, and use for the rest of your life. And that's really the big takeaway here. When you use this playbook, you're not just a consumer of information anymore. You're not just a reader. You become an architect of your own knowledge, actively building a library of useful, accessible wisdom inside your own mind.
Here goes to trick number 3, the margin dialogue, right back to the author.
The whole point here is pretty simple. Stop letting the author do all the talking. It's time to turn reading from a monologue into a full-blown conversation where you actually get to talk back. And listen, this isn't some new age productivity hack. This is a practice that's been around for centuries, and it even has a formal name, marginalia. Seriously, this simple act of just writing in the margins has been a secret weapon for some of the most brilliant minds in history. It's how they wrestled with ideas and truly made them their own. And when you do this, just look at the company you're keeping. We're talking about Charles Darwin, who literally filled his books with notes that helped shape his theories. Mark Twain was famous for his hilarious and often critical comments in the margins. And if you look at John Adams' library, it's like a battlefield of arguments on every page. These guys weren't just reading, they were engaging in a debate. Getting this dialogue started is so easy. You can just use 4 super simple prompts. When something just clicks and resonates with you, jot down "yes" in the margin. When you disagree or see a weak spot in the argument, challenge it with a "but." If you get confused by something, a simple question mark is all you need. And maybe the most powerful one of all, when you connect an idea to something else you know, write, "This reminds me of." That's how you start weaving new knowledge into what you already understand. And this is the whole key. This is why it works. The actual physical act of writing something down flips a switch in your brain. You go from being a passive sponge, just soaking things up and hoping they don't leak out, to being an active thinker. You start evaluating, questioning, and connecting the dots.
Let's move to trick number 4, the end of chapter pause. Summarize before you turn the page.
The end of chapter pause. You know that feeling, right? You finish a book, and all the chapters have just melted together into one big, blurry mess. Well, this simple little habit is designed to stop that from ever happening again. The entire technique boils down to the number 3. That's it. This is not about writing a long, drawn-out summary. It's about taking a quick, maybe 2-minute pause after every single chapter to ask yourself 3 very specific questions. That is all it takes to really lock in what you just read. And here they are, the 3 magic questions. First, what was the single most important idea in this chapter? This forces you to cut through all the noise and find the core message. Second, what story or example do I remember most? This is brilliant because it gives your brain a little memory hook to hang the idea on. And third, the most important one, what am I going to do differently because of this? This is what builds that crucial bridge between just knowing something and actually doing something with it. And think about it, this 2-minute pause, it's not about adding more time to your reading, it's about adding more value. With every chapter, you're basically laying down another piece of a mental map. So by the time you finish, you don't just have a vague memory of the book, you have this fully constructed, easy-to-navigate blueprint of all its best ideas right there in your head.
And here is trick number 5, the book blueprint. Create a 1-page visual map.
I think most powerful technique, the book blueprint. This is where we pull everything together. The goal here is to create a single, 1-page visual map of the entire book that you can use for years to come. All you need to start is a blank sheet of paper. Seriously, right in the middle, write down the book's title. And then, here's the hard part, force yourself to boil down the book's single biggest idea into just one sentence. That simple act of distillation is the foundation for everything that comes next. From that core idea in the middle, you're going to draw 3 to 5 branches coming out. These are the book's main themes. And for each and every branch, you're going to follow a structure that should sound pretty familiar by now. You write down the key idea, you add the best story that illustrates it, and then you list one concrete action you're going to take because of it. So you can see the pattern here, right? Every major theme is broken down into this amazing little trio: the idea, the story that makes it stick, and the action that makes it useful. It is such a beautifully simple formula for deconstructing any book into its most essential, usable parts. Now, here is where the real magic happens. As you create these blueprints, one for each book, you store them together. What you're doing is building an external brain. You're creating your own personal, curated library of the most important ideas you've ever come across, and it's all ready for you to review in just minutes. So let's just pull this all together. When you combine the margin dialogue, the chapter pause, and the book blueprint, what you end up with is so much more than just a few new reading tricks. What you get is a fundamental transformation in your relationship with knowledge itself. I mean, this slide just lays it out perfectly. Look at the difference. The passive reader just absorbs information and treats a book like a trophy to be finished. The active reader thinks about the information and treats the book like a tool to be used. You stop just letting information wash over you, and you start truly owning the ideas, internalizing them, and making them part of who you are. And really, this is the ultimate payoff. This isn't about remembering a bunch of facts so you can win at trivia. It's about being in that important meeting or having that tough conversation and having the perfect idea, the exact right mental model, just pop into your head at the precise moment you need it. That is the real superpower we're trying to unlock here. So the final challenge is this. Become the kind of reader an author would absolutely love to meet or even get into a good argument with. Be a participant, a collaborator in creating knowledge. The next time you pick up a book, make sure you pick up a pen too. It's time to start the conversation.
Here we move to trick number 6, the Feynman teaching trick. Explain it simply, or you do not know it.
And this one isn't about memorizing things. It's about getting to a real deep level of understanding. This quote it nails it. We fool ourselves all the time, right? We think we get something because we recognize all the fancy words and the jargon from the book. But Feynman's rule here is this brutally effective test. If you really know something, you can make it sound simple. So here's how you actually do it. After you finish a chapter or a key idea, just grab a blank sheet of paper. Now, write down everything you just learned. But, and this is the key, you have to explain it in the simplest words you can think of. No jargon, use an analogy, literally pretend you're explaining it to a middle schooler who's never heard of it before. And this is where the real magic happens. Because when you try to explain it simply, you're going to hit these spots where you stumble or where your explanation gets all fuzzy and complicated. Those are not failures. Think of them as signposts. And this is so important. The moments where you struggle, that's the most valuable part of the whole thing. It's like a spotlight showing you exactly where you need to go back to the book, reread that one part, and really lock it in. You're not just reading anymore, you're actively finding and fixing the weak spots in your understanding.
Now it's time to trick number 7, the spaced repetition review schedule. Review at the right time.
Okay, so you've used the Feynman technique, you actually understand the stuff, awesome. But now, how do you make sure it sticks around for good? Which is our direct counterattack on that pesky forgetting curve we saw earlier. Now, the idea here is actually really simple, but it is so powerful. Instead of cramming or just looking at your notes whenever, you review information at specific, spaced-out times. Every time you do a review, you interrupt that forgetting process right as the memory is starting to fade, and you're basically sending a signal to your brain that says, hey, this is important, you need to keep this. And science has shown this is pretty much the perfect schedule. You do a quick review the same day you learn it. Then you check in again a day later, then a week later, then a month later. It almost sounds too easy, but these little strategic check-ins are exactly what builds those strong, long-lasting memories. And here's the best part. This doesn't take a ton of time. I'm not talking about rereading the whole book over and over again. No way. Each of these reviews should only take like 5 to 15 minutes. You're just glancing at your notes, looking at the highlights. These fast, spaced-out sessions are way more effective than one giant soul-crushing review session.
And this is trick number 8, the application window. Implement within 48 hours.
So Feynman, make sure you understand it. Spaced repetition, make sure you remember it. But there is one that turns that knowledge into real-world wisdom. This is all about closing the gap between knowing something in your head and actually doing something with it in your life. So be honest with yourself for a second. Which one of these are you? So many of us are information consumers. We read books to feel productive, to feel like we're getting ready for something. But a lot of the time, it's just a really sophisticated way to procrastinate. The goal is to become a knowledge applicator, someone who reads with the clear intention of taking action. And this is the rule that forces you to make that change. Whatever book you're reading, you have to apply at least one thing you learned from it within 48 hours. Not someday, not when I have time, within 2 days, period. So why does this work so well? Well, when you take an idea from a page and you turn it into a real-world action, you trigger something called encoding through experience. Basically, your brain is hardwired to remember experiences way better than abstract facts. Actions create these rich, multi-sensory memories that are just tougher to forget. You're literally building stronger pathways in your brain. You stop just knowing about it, you start actually knowing it. You should make this your new mantra. After every single chapter you read, ask yourself this exact question and then write down the answer. So if you read about a new way to communicate, your application is to try it in your next meeting. If you read a productivity tip, you implement it tomorrow morning. The action doesn't have to be perfect, but it absolutely has to be real. Okay, so let's tie this all together. Let's look at how these three powerful strategies work as a system to completely transform how you read. And here it is, your new playbook. It's that simple. First, you test your understanding with a Feynman test. Second, you beat that forgetting curve with a spaced review schedule. And third, you make that knowledge permanent by putting it into action within 48 hours. And this is the real transformation. It's a huge shift. You go from letting information just kind of wash over you to actively wrestling with it, embedding it deep in your memory, and actually putting it to work to improve your life. This is how reading actually changes you. So what's the secret? What's the glue that makes ideas stick? Well, it all comes down to this: stories. Stories are the currency of leadership. Why? Because they sneak past our analytical brain and connect right to our emotions, which is where memories are really made. And guess what? Books are an absolute treasure trove of the best stories on the planet.
This is well explained in trick number 9, the shareable story bank. Collect stories you can use anywhere.
You need to become a master storyteller. Now, this isn't about becoming a novelist or a screenwriter. It's about learning how to find, capture, and share the powerful stories you're already reading, turning them into your secret communication weapon. And the tool you're going to use is called a story bank. Just think about that name for a second. It's exactly what it sounds like: your own personal vault filled with powerful narratives you've collected from your reading. It's an arsenal of stories ready to go for any situation you could possibly face. And the best part? It's so simple to get started. All you need is a notebook. Seriously, physical or digital, whatever works for you. When you're reading and a story just grabs you, you capture it. You just jot down the key ingredients. Who's the character? What's the conflict? What was the big turning point and what's the lesson? The trick is to keep it short and sweet, half a page tops. That's it. So what's the real-world payoff here? Well, picture this. You're about to give a big presentation, and instead of a boring slide, you pull out a perfect story of resilience from your story bank. Or you're having a tough one-on-one with a team member, and you can share a story about how someone else turned a failure into a huge win. You see, you're not just sharing info, you're creating moments that people actually remember.
And this is our last trick, trick number 10, the book TO conversation habit. Discuss, debate, and teach what you read.
This one is all about turning reading from a solo activity into a team sport. It's about turning reading into a conversation. Why? Because the deepest learning doesn't happen when we're alone with a book. It happens when we're forced to talk about the ideas, to explain them, and to defend them. That's when we truly make them our own. I mean, just look at the difference here. When we read by ourselves, it can be pretty passive, right? We're just consuming, and that knowledge can just end up sitting on a mental shelf collecting dust. But the moment you start talking about it, everything changes. It becomes active. The ideas go from being just words on a page to something that actually lives inside of you. And I know what you might be thinking. Another thing to add to my schedule. But getting started is way simpler than you'd think. Let's look at 3 incredibly practical habits you can build, like, right now. First, start a book club. And hey, this doesn't need to be some big formal thing. It could just be you and one other colleague. The accountability alone is a game changer. Second, and I love this one, start your team meetings with a 2-minute book moment. Just one person shares one cool idea from something they've read. That alone builds an incredible culture of learning. And third, the gold standard, mentor someone using a book you read together, because we all know that teaching something is the absolute best way to truly learn it. But look at all this other good stuff. You've got things like the Feynman technique, which is all about being able to explain a complex idea simply, or triple layer highlighting for separating insights from actions. This is a complete toolkit for turning reading into real-world wisdom. But here is the most important part of this whole thing. Do not, I repeat, do not try to do all 10 of these at once. That's just a recipe for getting completely overwhelmed and giving up. No, instead, you're just going to pick 3. That's it. Just 3 that jump out at you, 3 that feel right for you right now. So here's the official challenge. Commit to applying just 3 of these tricks for the next 60 days. And here's the promise. It's a big one. If you do this consistently, the way your team sees you, the way they perceive you as a leader, it will start to change. Why? Because you'll be thinking more deeply, speaking more clearly, and leading with more wisdom. So let's end with this thought, because it really captures the entire spirit of this playbook. This is our call to action. The goal isn't just to be a person who looks at a lot of pages. It's to be a leader who truly reads them, owns the ideas, and then goes out and lives them.
Thank you so much for watching today's video. It means the world to me that you're here and part of this book-loving community. If you love this video, please hit the like button. It helps others find the channel. And don't forget to subscribe for more book discussions, deep dives, and all book things literature. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments and connect. And if you know someone who'd love this content, please share it with them. Sharing is caring, and it's how our little community grows. Until next time, happy reading!